everybody! Welcome to the Holly Lolly channel. Today we are going to talk about the pros and cons of living in Japan. I've received comments from some people asking if it's so bad to live in Japan, why do you stay there? Why not leave? I want to clarify that I am not aiming to portray Japan negatively or suggest that everything about living here is bad. No, my message is different. Many people, for example, are considering Japan for relocation. They want to move here permanently, to settle down here. But many people, for example, are not ready to face potential challenges, or they don't know what situations they might encounter, what surprises may lie in store for them here. Frankly speaking, I wasn't ready for a lot of things. There have been many wonderful and positive discoveries here that make me really happy, and I think, can society really be like this? Why didn't other people, nations, or countries think of this before? Why did the Japanese think of it? On the flip side, there's another aspect to consider when you turn the coin over and see that alongside the positives, there are also some questionable and peculiar aspects. So, each person has the right to decide what they find acceptable or unacceptable. That's why I share my daily experiences, discoveries, and new learnings with you. Sometimes it's incredibly positive, but I also feel obligated to discuss the occasional negative aspects, especially for those interested in Japan. So, I believe you probably want to hear about not just the positive aspects, but also the less favorable aspects and nuances that occur. So, let's discuss the pros and cons that everyone encounters when living in this country. When I prepare information for you, such as for recording a video, the material includes several components, my personal experiences, observations, and information gathered from external sources, such as the internet. I read and process this information, contemplate it, incorporate my own thoughts, and then share it with you. So here is what I found on the internet. Many people write that a big disadvantage of living in Japan is the amount of what they call visual garbage. This includes numerous posters, announcements, bulletin boards, and signs that repeat information multiple times, indicating where to go or not to go. Many say that this saturation is quite unusual for our European perspective, to the extent that they've even coined the term visual clutter to describe it. Personally, I disagree with that viewpoint. I don't see all this information as useless or unnecessary. Let's break it down. What sets Japan apart from other countries? It's precisely these anime posters in Akihabara, the vibrant signs in Shibuya. Even the advertisements here are so vivid that they leave you in awe. You look around and find it all intriguing. As a foreigner, as a tourist, I find it all fascinatingly interesting. If all of this were taken away, what would be left? Just the gray, unremarkable architecture of the city. Those gray houses, the narrow spaces between them, it's what you see when you drive into the residential areas without all this visual clutter. I apologize for using that term so passionately, but it actually frustrates me a bit. When I stroll through the residential districts, I can't help but notice how dull and monotonous it all looks. Yes, it's clean and pleasant, but in some places, the lack of space can feel constricting. However, when you step onto the main streets and encounter an abundance of information, personally, it delights my eyes. I think you can also capture some amazing shots with all those brightly colored signs. I can definitely agree that the Japanese have a tendency to duplicate things excessively. Sometimes it can seem a bit absurd. For example, let me illustrate. Here's a corner where cars can only turn right and no other direction. Pedestrians on the sidewalk also will only turn right and can't go any other way. But yet in Japan you'll often find an additional sign saying, "Sorry, right turn only, do not go straight." And I think, how can you go straight or drive straight if it's a dead end? It's moments like these where it can feel a bit excessive, but nevertheless you will almost never get lost in Japan, because the subway is so well thought out, the signs are duplicated everywhere. Yes, if you've probably lived in Japan for years, decades, you know the routes well, you can get around with your eyes closed, and it's okay. When I'm looking for the right subway line, I memorize their names and color coding. For example, I live on the red line. Of course, each line has its own name. Let's say I need to get to the yellow line. In this case, I build a route, look at the number of stations and other information. When I transfer at a large station with about 7 different lines, having duplicated information at every corner helps a lot. For example, at a station with 10 cars, if I get off the 5th car, I can see the information I need right away. The same thing happens if I get out of the 3rd car. The information is duplicated, so that I don't have to go to the very end of the station to find out whether to go left or right. This system of duplicated information benefits all passengers, ensuring that no matter where they disembark, they can easily find the right directions and follow the signs, of which there are truly an overwhelming number. However, I consider this a positive aspect because it allows me to navigate anywhere. The information is presented in a way that's easy to understand, almost like it's designed for first graders. In fact, Here first graders get home from school on their own. Everything is clearly indicated with arrows, guiding you to turn, descend, or ascend. It's extremely well planned, and for me, that's a huge, huge advantage. Another point that many people discuss, and that I truly agree with, is that Japan is the only developed country that doesn't bury its telephone wires and electrical lines. This tangled mess is visible all the time when you leave the house. You get to enjoy, so to speak, this abundance of overhead wires. Actually, why did it used to be done like this? After the war, it was necessary to restore and build houses as quickly as possible, and this way of keeping wires on top was the easiest, the fastest, and the cheapest. When business districts began to develop, with houses and high-rise buildings being constructed, these poles and wires became obstructive. So, in these districts, the wires were hidden underground. However, in the surrounding residential neighborhoods, all the wires and poles remained. In these areas, besides the electrical wires, you also have transformers and internet cables. However, there's a small nuance. To do this, you need to find at least a small piece of free land, which is a significant issue in Japan, especially in Tokyo. Land is so valuable and expensive here, leading to narrow and dense development everywhere. Because of this, burying the wires poses a big challenge. I think Japan will probably never get rid of this hanging web of wires. There is no central heating in most of the country. Although winters in Japan are relatively mild, it doesn't change the fact that sometimes the temperature inside apartments can be the same as outside. The Japanese have a specific approach to this. They believe you should first warm yourself and then heat the space around you. That's why the Japanese very often prefer jackets with heaters. That is, you put the jacket on charge it and then go out, put it on and warm yourself up. They use various thermal blankets, thermal sheets, heated mats and much, much more. And right now, I'm sitting in a t-shirt, feeling warm because we have air conditioning on in the room, and there's enough space in the room for the heat to spread throughout the room. This room should be heated well enough, because then there is a corridor. They call it a hall, but it looks more like a corridor to me, and the heat should reach there too. So it's comfortable here. However, to go out into the corridor, I need to put on a warm jacket with a zipper. And if I need to go to the bathroom, it can be quite an ordeal in winter. Taking a bath or shower can remind me of visiting my grandfather in the village as a child, where the toilet was outside. You'd wake up at night and think 100 times about how badly you wanted to go, because you'd have to run outside. Or you'd decide it wasn't that urgent and hold off until morning. It's a similar feeling here. You're warm and comfortable in your room, but as you head to the bathroom, the cold increases with every step. Sometimes it's so cold in the bathroom that you want to warm your hands with hot air. So you have to undress very quickly to wash yourself with hot water and then quickly wrap yourself in a towel, put on a bunch of clothes again and reach the bedroom to warm up. The same goes for the restroom. Even though the toilet seat itself is warm, which is nice, it's still quite chilly while you're in there, even for a short time. So, you end up putting on something warm as well. I sometimes laugh about having to put on a puffer jacket just to use the restroom. I'm kidding, of course, but it's quite unpleasant there, because it's very cold. Sometimes steam comes out of your mouth. So, you quickly run back into the bedroom to warm up. That's how I am in warm pajamas. Sometimes I put a sweater on top and visit these special rooms in our apartment when it's cold. You can't see the steam coming out of my mouth, but it's quite frosty here. Also, the Japanese often like to use kotatsu. I think you've heard of it many times. It's a special table with a blanket, with a warm sheet. And there's usually a built-in heater underneath. That is, you put your legs there, and it's comfortable and pleasant to sit and get warm. In general, we rely on air conditioners for heating. However, it's not practical to install air conditioners everywhere in Japan. It's also quite costly, so many people opt not to use air conditioners or use only one to heat the entire room. Naturally, the closer you are to the air conditioner, the warmer it feels, while the farther away you go, the cooler it becomes. For example, I have a futon here. I hope you can see. And I'm very used to heat, so if this whole place is not heated, I'm going to be very uncomfortable. I even laugh. I say, I won't survive if I live without heat. Besides, if you turn off the heating, there will be mold, dampness, very, very unpleasant, so we heat the room. In Japan, it's common to have tall windows that almost reach the floor. These are a lifesaver in the summer, helping to keep rooms cool. However, during winter, Japanese households often use special boards to block drafts and retain warmth. They use these boards not only for windows but also for parts of doors to maximize heat retention and prevent drafts. In our house, by the way, because of the fact that the window is on one side and the door is on the other side, when you open the door, it causes the window to shake a lot. This creates a strong draft that can be quite cold. Personally, I can't imagine boarding up a window. I need light and space. So, we heat our apartment with air conditioners and don't use boards like the Japanese do. The Japanese place a strong emphasis on punctuality, particularly in consideration of others' comfort. The locals are very, very punctual. But, you know, Japanese punctuality and our punctuality are slightly different things. It's important to understand that in Japan, arriving at least 10 minutes before work starts is expected, and being there 15 to 30 minutes early is considered truly punctual. If, for instance, your work begins at 9 and you arrive just a couple of minutes before 9, it can be seen as disrespectful and considered unpunctual. It doesn't necessarily mean you'll be treated poorly, but it may suggest to others that you're unreliable and not dependable when it comes to time. That is, you should know that even at a meeting you will be treated with more respect if you arrive in advance. This means that you show respect by showing the other person that you value their time very much, since you arrived much earlier. So you should know that in Japan you should do everything in advance, come to meetings, start work 15 to 30 minutes earlier than you should. That's the peculiarity of it. It can, you know, be seen as both a positive and a negative. What is a big disadvantage for me, as a mom with 2 kids, is the very small number of play areas, playgrounds in Tokyo. I mean, I'm talking about Tokyo, I'm not talking about other cities. For example, what is very common in the CIS countries, you can go to some cafe where there will be a separate play area, a play place where children can socialize, play, and parents will be somewhere nearby drinking tea or coffee and chatting together. I hope you get the idea. Or there are full-fledged play areas specifically for children. But still they make places where moms can also buy something, have a snack, socialize, drink coffee, while watching the kids. You won't find that here. Yes, there are a few play areas that everyone knows about, but you have to constantly watch your child there, and there's nowhere to sit down. Forget about chatting with a friend you haven't seen in a long time, because there's nowhere, simply no place designed for that. Or, for example, children's birthday parties. Japanese houses and apartments are very small, with limited space. And if, for example, you want to invite children, you will invite them with their parents, and you have so little space and not even enough chairs for everyone. You can't just have people sit on the floor, right? So, you think, okay, I'll take them to a cafe. But for a children's birthday party, that might not be interesting for the kids. They'll sit, eat some cake, and that's it. They want to play and have fun. And you think, how can you combine fun for the children, since it is a children's birthday party, with a place where parents can relax and sit? Then you realize there are no such places in Tokyo. You either take your kids to a play area where you have to follow them around, or to a cafe where there's no fun for the kids and no opportunity for them to play. Imagine Disneyland or a small amusement park. On their child's birthday, every parent wants to give them something special, like at least ensuring they don't have to wait in long lines that day. In many places, you can buy a fast ticket or fast pass so that the child can enjoy their birthday without waiting in lines, to stroll in the park, ride on rides. However, here, everyone is equal, and everyone stands in line. There are no fast tickets available, not even for purchase. There are no special privileges, even if you're willing to pay. You can't buy something special for your child on their birthday, so they end up standing an hour-long, 2-hour queues just to enjoy a minute-and-a-half ride on an attraction. Those who don't have children might think, come on, what's the downside? But moms with kids will understand what I'm talking about. Especially in a foreign country, you want to establish communication between children, find ways for them to interact, and take them somewhere fun. But when you find yourself almost sitting on the floor in the middle of their entertainment because you're just so tired, you think, why is it like this? So many things here are well thought out and comfortable, but this aspect is not considered at all. I also wanted to warn you that it is not a good idea to come to Japan during public holidays. In Japan, in Tokyo specifically, let's not talk about the whole country, but about Tokyo, it gets incredibly crowded. Every day, you find people queuing up, standing in line to eat or to get on the subway. Queues are almost everywhere you go, but on weekends or holidays, it's just unreal. There are so many people here that we've made it a rule in our family not to go out at all on these days. Going to the store is an exception. We might take the kids outside for a walk, but we try not to go anywhere on weekends or holidays. Otherwise, you end up spending the whole day in lines and still can't get anywhere. Also, don't forget that on holidays, Japanese people themselves love to travel. They are very fond of traveling within Japan. Because of this, hotel prices skyrocket as everyone books rooms months in advance. If you plan to attend an event in another city, you must book ahead, or you won't find any availability. We just returned from a trip yesterday, which coincided with a public holiday and a 3-day weekend. We decided to visit Kobe, another city in Japan, but it wasn't the best idea. Even at the Onpanman Children's Museum, we couldn't get in on our first attempt. When we arrived, they asked us, "Excuse me, did you purchase tickets online?" We hadn't, and to buy on the spot, to try to buy, we had to wait 2.5 hours. We got there at 12, and the ticket office reopened at 2:30 p.m. And there was no guarantee we'd be able to buy tickets even then. So we booked a trip to the museum for the next day. We thought it would be a very cool museum, but it just turned out to be a children's play area, where you just give your kids to play. So, it was difficult to call it a museum, and even getting into such a place without booking well in advance is nearly impossible. That's why you need to know about holidays, and especially Golden Week. Golden Week is the period from April 29th to May 5th, when all Japanese people go on holiday and disperse across the country. And even though since it became allowed to visit Japan, there are so many tourists here, when Japanese people travel, you just can't get anywhere. For example, my birthday is April 29th, which is the beginning of Golden Week. And 2 years ago we tried to go to Disneyland. I regretted it a lot because we didn't get on any of the rides at all. We paid a lot of money for the entrance, and we had to stand in lines for 4 to 5 hours, and it was already warm enough outside, standing under the sun, and you couldn't go out or go anywhere. So we just walked out of there. It's something unbelievable. So be aware that it's best not to travel on holidays. If you have the opportunity, buy tickets in advance and plan your vacation, but still avoid New Year's Eve. During New Year's Eve, many places also go on micro-vacations and are closed to visitors. New Year in Japan is quite different from what we're used to. There are no fireworks, celebrations, or festivities. It's a quiet family holiday. I would compare it to our Easter, a quiet, modest celebration within the family circle at home. It's not a large-scale public event. And if you, as a tourist, come here during this period, you will probably be disappointed, because you will expect celebrations on the street. But they will simply not be here. So don't travel during the holidays. By the way, we were returning from Kobe yesterday. We tried to buy Shinkansen tickets around noon to get back to Tokyo, but were told that everything was sold out until 6 p.m. So you may not even be able to leave and not be able to buy Shinkansen tickets. Despite the Shinkansen running every 2 to 3 minutes, all tickets were already booked. We ended up spending half a day at the train station waiting for our scheduled train because earlier trains were fully booked. Once again, we were reminded that it's not advisable to travel on holidays or weekends in Japan, as it's nearly impossible to get anywhere and it quickly spoils the mood. In Japan, robots are widely used in all areas of life, from serving people in restaurants, in cafes, in various establishments, to caring for the elderly. For example, some restaurants use robotic waiters to serve customers. These robots not only reduce the workload of the staff, but also help to improve the level of service. There is a robot that is designed to carry elderly people. It can see, recognize smells, and even hear. It has key features to recognize emergencies in nursing homes. Such robots can even cook. For example, Chef Morimoto. He can bake Japanese pancakes. He is considered one of the best Japanese robots that can cook and has 2 hands. There are various family robots in Japan that blend entertainment with everyday convenience. For instance, these robots can read stories to children while also serving as personal assistants around the house. This is just a glimpse of Japanese technology. Another significant advantage of living in Japan is that you may not need to travel to other countries to explore new places. Japan itself offers a vast array of landscapes and experiences that can take a considerable amount of time to fully explore. From its beautiful mountains to coastal regions, Japan has diverse scenery. If you want snow, fly to Hokkaido. There are ski resorts there. Those seeking the ocean or sea can enjoy surfing and other water activities. There are numerous gardens in Japan that soothe the soul, where you can admire nature. There are lively districts with bustling nightlife. Tokyo has numerous neighborhoods with lively hangouts. I would say, there is entertainment for all tastes and preferences. Initially surprising to me was the fact that many Japanese people do very little traveling around the world. They are very fond of choosing Japan to travel, to explore. They frequently embark on culinary tourism, sampling diverse cuisines across Japanese cities. They specifically travel to taste the local cuisine of different cities and regions, appreciating the unique flavors distinct from those found in Tokyo. And the Japanese, as they say, have no need to go outside of Japan to travel, because they find everything they need for life right here. By the way, it's interesting for me to explore here too. I went to Kyoto, for example. Everything is steeped in traditional Japanese style there, reflecting the Japan of old with its abundance of traditional buildings that immerse you deeply in the culture. Osaka is more of a party city, you know, and the Japanese are very open there. In Tokyo they are more reserved and shy, but there they are more cheerful. I visited Kobe. It's a small, quite interesting town, but I can't say that it surprised me much. Because if Osaka and Kyoto are different from Tokyo, then Kobe, as we noticed with the whole family, it's just like you go to a different station in Tokyo and walk around exploring a new part of the city. So Japan has a lot of corners to travel to explore. And if that's enough for a person, then you can explore and explore and explore. You know, as they say, even a few decades are not enough to explore all of Japan and all the wealth it has. The Japanese love for instructions with illustrations is amazing and characterizes the peculiarities of their culture. It seems that instructions are present in virtually every aspect of life for them, as they are used extensively across different contexts. What's particularly important for someone like me, who can't read Japanese characters, is that every instruction is accompanied by an illustration. This means that even if you can't understand the text, you can still follow the instructions by looking at the pictures. Whether it's navigating the subway, using equipment, or changing seats, everything is well explained visually. Sometimes they even illustrate them cartoonishly to make everything clear. At your workplace you will always have instructions on how to use something. When you buy goods, they always give you a detailed instruction manual and tell you how to take care of this or that item, how to use it, what to do with it. Very, very nice. Sometimes it's surprising that even onigiri, which is a rice ball wrapped in a sheet of nori, there will also be instructions on how to properly open and eat it. You know, sometimes it's funny and hilarious, but it's very, very helpful in many areas of life. I think this is partly because the Japanese value privacy and are often reserved, preferring not to engage unnecessarily with others. They tend to be introverted, and these detailed instructions help them avoid unnecessary interactions. Wherever you go, you are provided with a manual to study, ensuring you understand everything without needing to ask questions of the staff. This allows for a comfortable and self-reliant way of navigating daily life. We once had an experience when we visited a gym near our house for the first time, and they didn't want to accept us as foreigners because they said, how can they learn the instructions? They don't know Japanese. The interpreter who was on the phone with us tried to explain that we wouldn't destroy the gym, asking them to let us in. But no, we need a special person to give them instructions in English, they said, because how will they know how to use the gym? Well, in general, we solved this issue, but I wanted to show that even for basic things like using a gym, they heavily rely on having instructions available. So, the Japanese are meticulous. They think everything through, even the instructions will be meticulous. Absolutely everything is thought out. Even on vending machines where you insert coins, there are clear illustrations. For example, if something costs 500 yen, it shows you can use either 5 coins of 100 yen or 10 coins of 50 yen. They even consider the denomination of the coins you use. You look at it and think, but I can calculate that myself. Perhaps it is done to somehow relieve your brain of unnecessary information, so that you do not have to carry everything in your mind. Everything was written for you, thought out, and you follow the instructions and everything will work out for you. You know, when it comes to health and beauty, the Japanese are truly remarkable. It's often said that the Japanese have a long lifespan, that it is genetics and so on. But how many of you have wondered, for example, how they achieve this, what, in fact, they do in order to live long? For instance, in one of the apartments we rented, we had windows overlooking the river embankment. From there, I could observe and compare how weekends are spent in CIS countries and how Japanese people spend their weekends. For example, I have only one day off, and I try to sleep as long as possible, to get a good rest. I wake up, and I see that the Japanese have been out since 6 in the morning. While I groggily fetch water, the Japanese grandmothers and grandfathers are already exercising and warming up. There are a lot of runners here, and not those who do sports professionally, but just ordinary people. They are out jogging, elderly people warming up, gathering in groups for various flexibility exercises and stretching routines. I attend a stretching session myself, where I see Japanese men and women who are, I don't know, many years old, and they are so flexible, plastic, they stretch, because they realize that it's very, very good for health. They don't spend their weekends in front of the TV, they don't watch movies on a tablet to relax, as we are used to. Instead, they prioritize physical and mental health through exercise. I'm very, very impressed by the number of people, including older individuals, who are exercising, and how they treat their health. There are a lot of vitamin complexes in local pharmacies for everything, for anything. A lot of Japanese products, and my translator in my phone is not enough to study and tell everything in detail, but there's a lot of stuff there that helps to detoxify the body, filling it with all sorts of good substances. In general, everything is done to make you live a cool, long life and take care of your health, and it's all based on natural components. I was surprised that in Asian cosmetics you can often find swallow's nest extract. What is it? It's the saliva of birds, which is rich in proteins and which hardens like silicone glue. It's added to everything you can think of, in cleansers, toners, serums, creams, eye patches, and so on. Whatever the product, this extract is often added to various cosmetics. Since ancient times, swallow nests have been valued not only in cosmetology, but also in medicine and cooking. Japanese cosmetics quite often include very unusual ingredients. It can be pearls, rice, snail extract, and much more. Friends, I tried to make the most interesting video for you. Let me know what you already knew, what surprised you, and what topics you want me to cover in future videos. I read all your comments and try to answer them. I want to sincerely thank you for each subscription, like, and comment. I am very, very grateful. Thank you so much. Arigato for watching. See you in the next videos. Stay tuned and bye-bye. See you soon and have a great time.